Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. And let me go ahead and start out by thanking the last of the donors. Um, since the last time I uploaded and thanked anybody, it's now the last four are Kevin D, as Jock, Sir Anthony, and Cornelius B. And I thank you from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind for that. And I mean that, for coming through. Um, and I think I mentioned to you all before what we believe, well, what I believe you should get because of um, the allies that you've been. So, with that being said, let me go ahead and get into the meat of this. When Erica Mena got put on for some show, and I only saw a headline, I uh, did see some comments about an argument. So she didn't just say it out of the blue, but she said it in the context of an argument in which she was provoked and then she overreacted. Oftentimes, um, when two Western sisters get into an argument or a fight, both of them wrong. Both of them stupid. BO space FUM space STEW space PED period. Both of them stupid. But it reminded me of a previous episode, and I couldn't remember who it was that compared abundantly melanated sisters to roaches until AC, also the Blackout channel, uh, made mention of it. And it was Cardi B. Cardi B apparently called sisters roaches, and that's a problem. And I started to wonder, oh, wait a minute. If she's the one that said that, and now I can remember that was her, then she was supposed to be canceled because we know the hyenocracy. We know the sisterhood. You can't say things that are not even that bad and stay uncanceled. Forget Zaddy canceling. You sisters will do it. You're not allowed that. It doesn't work like that. You can't say these things and be uncanceled, so that means something's going on here. And it dawned on me finally, consciously. It was in my subconscious, but it consciously dawned on me. Cardi B is proof of the low boiling contempt for black men, about which BGS and Tiesan Johnson and Terrain Walker and the Hood Scholar and Green Gorilla and Dr. Ronald Neal have talked. And Edward, the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson has spoken. Cardi B was not canceled for that because she actually did worse to black men and confessed to it. It dawned on me when Cardi B said that. She wasn't crying and confessing, she was bragging, but crying. Because it was a bit less obvious then. Now, sisters pretty much know. When you say that you did something to black men, you say, oh, screw you, say it with your chest. But that was a long time ago. I mean, what, 2017, 2018, she said it, I think. No, I think it was 2015 or 2016 she said it. Yeah. I remember now because I had not moved to the city, the second city in which I lived in this kingdom. I was still in the first city in which I ever lived. And I remember because an African American Muslima was defending her to me. And she was a feminist, and it turned out her non Muslim, white, overweight friend was backing her up, talking about, yeah, these men want to go to Southeast Asia because they can control them women. And when I opened up her page, she had a Southeast Asian man smaller than her, shorter, and weighing less than her. So she could control them. Woo, the projection. You can't make that up. As Kevin Samuels would have said, you can't shake this myth up. Of course, he would have actually swore he did, but I'm trying to avoid that. But you get the idea. It was that plain. It was that simple. It's like, yeah, it's okay, yeah, and so what? And meanwhile, you and I are sitting up and we're looking like, dot gam. That's how we roll. That's what we doing now. That's what's hot. So yeah, um, because Cardi B confessed that she drugged, robbed, and then by proxy violated men who were trying to do something that was immoral and unethical and decreasingly so illegal, but not so much humiliating and disrespectful, not by definition, and still wrong. She just had to go the extra mile. She had to take it further and at the expense of her dignity, and that's why she wasn't canceled. The sisterhood that was supposed to cancel her decided not to because of this. Now, I don't remember which one came first because I learned about them so close together, but I think, anyway, you know what? It doesn't mother cuss word matter. Like I stated, the celebrities are just public proof of what we can see. You were dealing with patterns that are similar in your real private lives without celebrities, and I mentioned the public examples so that you understand you're not going through this by yourself. That's it. That's all. I don't have to ruin anybody's privacy when I mention these folks. But keep this in mind too. You really are, you black men really are like this. You're a pillar. You are a floor and a pillar. You're all kinds of supports. You're the pedestal on which Western womanhood rests its minimum self esteem. You're that mechanism. And I'm very proud of you in the black manosphere because you have decided that you will no longer be that. You of the black manosphere and of red pill awareness have decided that those days are over. You have decided that you are going to analytically think about what it is that these ladies are doing and why they're doing it before you decide and agree to be with any of them, let alone to marry them in front of the state. You are smart. You are analytically saying, you know what, we are no longer going to let Nick Kilcher stand in as culture. They're not the same, and we're no longer allowing them to be played as the same. Shuck that fit. No more. Not today. And I'm vaingloriously proud of you for that. I mean that. I mean, fuck the what else should it be, right? You have finally decided to draw the line in between somebody liking comics and Star Wars and Star Trek and being an outright race traitor because that line was not that distinct before. It was a much thinner line now than what it is today. You made that line thicker. You've made it more distinct. My hat goes off to you for it. You've now pretty much said that I mean, you pretty much made the public aware of the difference between an Urkel, if it, when that stereotype actually exists and is embodied in somebody in real life, you've made them more aware of the difference between an Urkel and a Clarence Thomas. Because previously, Black America, though there was a difference, Black America really didn't think much about it. You have made not only Black America, you have made the the Black Western Anglophone diaspora more aware of this. You pretty much said, no, 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 no. That's somebody with habits that are not negatively stereotypical. Yeah, I said it. Pronunciation intentional. But that does not make so and so a race traitor. That does not mean that so and so will turn around and help the Klan against us one day. Doesn't mean that. It means so and so's not the negative stereotype that you see on the reel, on the silver screen, on TV at home. He's not some played out 1970s, 1980s movie stereotype. He's not the caricature of the black exploitation genre of the 1970s and part of the 80s. No, shuck that fit. That's what you have pointed out. That's what you have made known. That's what you've manifested and then made everybody understand. Culture war starts with you. I can't sit up here and say that the rest of Black America, that the rest of the Black Anglophone West has done this. No, that's pretty much been Black manosphere as far as I've seen. There have been those who have tried. They've attempted. I'll give credit where it's due to the NOI for making the effort. They made the effort, but then other sugarnet wove its way in. I mean, there's a reason some of them went and killed Malcolm and didn't have to be approached by the bossy of New York or the FBI to get them to do it. Even the ones that actually pulled the trigger, I bet you that of the four that did it, only one of them probably had contact with any law enforcement. And to be honest with you, I don't think that was Talmadge Hager. I don't think he was the one that did. He was a little too honest, a little too frank. Like, yeah, I did it, but these other three that y'all arrested weren't the ones that they didn't do that with me. They weren't there. I don't know them cats. And he couldn't even get them exonerated, but he tried. I'm not saying that to big him up or anything. He shot Malcolm. I'm never going to be able to. He's going to need a law to forgive him for that because I never will be able to. I'm like, F your repentance. You shot Malcolm, man. I don't want to hear about it. But I will say that the NOI did make that attempt, despite the fact that the sugar net crept its way into even them. They did make an attempt to clean up the culture. And that was back then when it wasn't nearly as bad as what it is now, although the same elements existed. The glorification of them did not exist. Well, I take that back. The glorification of them was not as extreme as what it is now. Or as what it was 30 years ago. But yeah, um, this time, I'd say that the Black Manosphere has brought this about while shunning negative stereotypes and Pookieisms and even the subconscious kinds that have crept in before. My hat goes off to you for that. The funny thing is that one of the things that marks the success of that is that you have lost your loyalty to the Western sister. And I'm not even lamenting that anymore because the two major differences between you and previous movements that were supposedly about our upliftment are that number one, you said, okay, no more loyalty to the Western sister, and not because she's black, but because of her loyalty to the negative elements that hold us back. And then number two, your success. Those are the two things that distinguish you. And I'm sitting up thinking to myself, there's no way that the second ain't tied to the first. Ain't no way. Because see, even in the autobiography, Malcolm said that he and Betty had some arguments. But in the movie, some of that was about things, about stuff, about what they owned, what they didn't own that some of the other brothers owned. Now remember, there was no Baines. Baines was an amalgamation of various characters. In the movie, there was Baines. He was an amalgamation of various influences Malcolm mentioned. He learned about the NOI through his siblings. And he also noticed that there was some in the prison that didn't get involved in the same stuff. Malcolm, um, may Allah have mercy on him, even had to have certain arguments and had to go through certain stresses, and that's with Betty. I don't think Betty meant any harm. I don't think so. Now, at a time when a lot of them mean you some kind of harm and they know what's going on, and keep in mind, Malcolm said something about sisters being the most disrespected, but I read his autobiography. That he said in his autobiography, yeah, I'm hard on sisters. It wasn't because he hated them, but he knew the games they were playing. I mean, I think there were games he didn't know or he knew and didn't say, but he knew that there were games they were playing. He'd seen that other side of them. He knew about that. He blamed himself when one of his exes wound up going into other women. He said, "I blame myself for that. That was me." But he talked about the other things they did and said, and he knew the things they said to each other. He said he had a problem with their very nature. How they bragged about what chumps they told to get lost, always bragging about that. He said that they had an influence on the men. There were a lot of things they got to do when it came to their men. They got to they could influence the husbands for the better or for the worse, and they would just abuse that influence. And so now, fast forward to today, and the black manosphere has said, okay, number one, no more loyalty to the Western sisters. And then they've also succeeded in bringing about a culture war that actually aggressively and with a good level of nuance attacks the culture that seeks to replace black culture and become and sit on the throne of black culture. That's something you've done. You that black manosphere. And you were able to attack the culture because you were pretty much willing to get rid of loyalty to whoever was loyal to the culture. And we know who that was. It wasn't every single black woman in the West or the East or anywhere else, but you pretty much knew that the run of the mill Sapphire, you couldn't be loyal to her no more, and she had infiltrated a lot of the so-called pro-black circles. The way you knew that is that they didn't show up pro-black until they were overweight elder single moms. It took that. It took not just some consequences of messing with Zaddy or chasing Zaddy, but it took permanent consequences. They couldn't come to you and hide those consequences. If they could, they wouldn't have come into the pro-black circles. Oh, no, no, no. No, it had to be a disease, a kid, or the weight and the age. It had to be these things that lowered their options in men before they would come around to you. And so you rightly said, well, the hell with that. You rightly said this. I'm proud of you for doing that. And then you won in terms of starting the actual culture war, because what was the chain? That shows me what the chain was. The major cycle, the most potent psychological chain was not Zaddy's brainwashing to, I mean, it's very potent, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the most. It was the second the most potent chain. The most potent chain was her validation of that brainwashing. A real N-word, a real N-word will, and then she fills in the blank with something negative. Then she turns around and says, a real man will, and she fills in the blank with something that is selfless and in exchange for nothing. Always not only not self-serving, but self-disserving. Always that. So see Shatine talking about what a real N-word would do. A real N-word will pull the trigger and get himself sent up the river on a life sentence. A real N-word will get out there and slang whatever is illegal because it's going to make more money anyway, even though that's not always true. She gets up and starts saying stuff like this. And then when she's in her 20s, late 20s, early 30s, a real man will take me as I am. They were doing this stuff back in the 90s, back when the rumor was that Mary J. Blige had HIV. Y'all remember, some of y'all might remember that was a rumor. On the Gulf Coast, it was really a rumor. And brothers would be like, yeah, man, she'd have been fine if she didn't have that HIV. And the sisters would be at the high school talking about something. If you really loved her, you take her with HIV. And it's a hypothetical situation. Dudes had to be like, no, we ain't with that HIV. Now, I remember a conversation like that. That was actually the conversation. I can find a chick on Facebook right now. I remember her name and I remember the name of the guy that was talking. Yeah, it was messed up. Even back then, if you really loved her, boy, it's always something like that. And when you broke that broke the psychological chain to her, in which she validates, you finally freed yourself to get rid of that which we needed to shed, so that we could actually create the space to create, not even to create actually, but the space to spread an already extant positive culture. So my hat goes off to you. Thank you for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual, non-select male power, because they don't like it, in black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for flying with us on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jet black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.